Good afternoon. This is Father Mark, and I am offering you a update on strategic planning at our town hall meeting on Friday, April 26th. I can't be with you today because I am in Phoenix, Arizona for the wedding of two people that I love dearly. This is Mary Graham and AJ Carter. Many of you know Mary through her time at Nichols. She was a missionary helping out with the young adults and the students at Nichols for a number of years. I met her there, was able to do some spiritual direction with her. She's like a daughter to me. She's getting married to AJ Carter of Thibodaux. Many of you may know his parents, Al and Perlette Carter. AJ is also like a son to me, and it's a real gift to be in Phoenix for their wedding. But I wanted to give you an update on strategic planning, and I thought that this video would be an appropriate way for me to share a few thoughts with you so that we can celebrate what God's doing in our diocese. Again, as we look at strategic planning, Stephen Covey said the main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing. And as we look at what we want to accomplish when strategic planning, what's the one thing that we want to accomplish with what we're doing in our diocese right now, the focus from Bishop Fobb has been on the parishes, the renewal of our parishes. And as we ask ourselves, how is it that we can keep the main thing there? How is it that we can renew our parishes? Well, we want to just remind ourselves that parishes are parishioners, right? Those are real people out there. The end goal for the renewal of our parishes is not the structure of the parish, but the people in the pew. The end goal is the parishioners, right? Parishes exist to form parishioners. Healthy parishes have healthy parishioners. So if the main thing is to keep the main thing, we in strategic planning are asking ourselves in all of what we're doing, how is it that we can impact the people in the pew? Well, we're going to start with Sunday because that's the Catholic experience. The people in the pew are there in a pew for Mass on Sunday, but it can't end with Sunday. The second question we ask ourselves is, how do we help people move through a process of spiritual maturity, spiritual maturation, knowing that at the end of that process, they need to come out of themselves, or all that God did in that process of spiritual growth will eventually atrophy. So those three things are the ways that we're going to impact people's lives in the pew. Start with Sunday, help them grow spiritually, and then help them come out of themselves to connect with other people, lest they atrophy back to where they were. How do we do that? Well, that's why we had our diocesan planning priorities, right? The three diocesan planning priorities reflect what we just talked about, right? So we want to start with Sunday. We want healthy formation in our parishes, and we want healthy outreach for people. When we look at Sunday, we talked about those three H's. That's how we're going to make an impact in our parishes, in the people in the pew's lives, right? Excellent hospitality, improve preaching, and elevate our liturgical music in our parishes. Over the next several years, that's how we're going to make an impact on Sunday. With formation, we're essentially talking about formation that happens in age-appropriate ways, and that's relevant in age-appropriate levels. And so that's adult formation and youth formation in the parish. And when we talk about outreach, we're essentially talking about parish social ministry and ways that we can help people come out of themselves and connect with other people to continue their spiritual growth. So where are we right now with strategic planning? Where are we with what we've been focused on? We had three primary areas of focus from New Year's to Easter. Over the last several months, we had three things that we wanted to do and to do well. The first thing we wanted to do was continue to establish trust with our pastors. Our pastors are essential to the renewal of our parishes. Our pastors are essential to the implementation of any plan inside the parish. When we look at establishing trust with the pastors, there were three areas that came to the surface. A pastor has to understand the vision. A pastor has to feel confident in implementing that vision. And then a pastor has to be open to us accompanying them. And it's that latter word, the accompaniment, that we have seen, perhaps you might say, the greatest blessing of God. I think our pastors are more open than ever with us walking with them. Our pastors are more open than ever in looking at the pastoral center and diocesan services as a place where they can be walked with, that the people who have always wanted them to succeed, they now are beginning to bridge the gap to see that all of us are there to accompany them, to walk with them. So we have established trust. We're growing in that. It's not perfect with all the guys, but probably better than it's ever been. How have we done that in the last couple months? Well, of course, we had the convocations, we had the lunch and learns, and then we had our liaisons working with them one-on-one. If you don't know what the lunch and learns is, that we experimented with that during Lent. We opened up the Pastoral Center on Thursdays, had free lunch for the guys, asked them to show up if they wanted to, had a topic of teaching that was relevant to the priests around the implementation of the strategic plan. Lots of the guys had Lent commitments and special masses, so our numbers reflected that. However, each of those teachings was recorded, it was filmed, it put on the website so the guys could watch it. Was very surprised and pleased to see the number of guys who came for Lunch and Learn or who watched the teaching thereafter. There's been a request for that to happen as we continue to go forward, and we'll fill you in on that as we go into what's happening in the latter half of this year. But we also wanted to establish a plan for each parish. So the first thing we wanted to do from New Year's to Easter was focus on trust building. We also wanted each parish to have their own version of their strategic plan. Of course, we were asking in that, how do we implement the diocesan planning priorities within the parish? Again, those 3 diocesan planning priorities that we had of Sunday formation and outreach, we wanted that to be reflected in the 3 priorities within the parish, knowing that by Ash Wednesday, our goal was that each parish would have submitted to us what their priorities were and the goals that they were going to have, that they were going to seek to implement, that were going to bring to fruition those priorities. So, for example, if our diocesan planning priorities were Sunday formation and outreach, it was our hope that by Ash Wednesday, the parishes would submit to us what their priorities were and what were the goals that they were going to have for that, knowing that whenever we have those goals and those priorities, sometimes the way that we develop a plan to meet those goals isn't always grounded in best practices. So what we did is we receive those priorities from each parish, right? Are they going to focus on Sunday formation and outreach, and what were their goals? Then by Divine Mercy Sunday, that's this Sunday coming up, we're going to present back to the parishes a template what we are recommending they do to meet those goals. A lot of times those goals are developed and they don't really respect the rhythm of parish life. So we've researched best practice ways to meet those goals. We're going to submit those action plans back to the parish. When we talk about the action plan, what are we talking about? Well, I just want to quote John Toops, as he often says to all of us, right? He says that we need to know who's doing what by when. And if we're going to meet our goals, we have to know who's doing what by when. And that's what those action plans are. Within each goal in the parish, we're submitting back to the parishes a best practice way of who can do what by when in order for those parishes to meet their goal. Parishes then can tweak that, and it's our hope that by Pentecost Sunday, each parish is going to promulgate their own plan in their own particular way and share that with each of their parishes. Where we are at this stage of the game, 38 parishes in our diocese, 35 are right on track. We have 3 parishes that we're working with very specifically, but of the 38 that we have, 35 are on track, and I think that's something to be really excited about. And within those 35 parishes that are on track, our 3 diocesan planning priorities are represented in their plans. So as we wanted parishes to focus on Sunday formation and outreach, we're seeing a great response to that. So again, our first goal for New Year's to Easter was to establish trust. Our second, you might focus for these first months of 2019 was to establish a plan within each parish. We also wanted to lay a foundation moving forward. We wanted to, in the early part of 2019, lay a foundation for the latter part of 2019, knowing that we needed to start with adults because it's adults that are going to be necessary for healthy youth ministry. And of course, it's the adults who in the pew who were hungry to learn. So we have been focused on establishing some leadership, starting to build some structure, a team approach for adult formation, which is going to eventually be focused on small groups and parishes, and a leadership, some structure, a team approach for youth formation. Now, of course, we know that CCD is eventually being kind of phased out. CCD, as we know it now, will be kind of phased out and replaced with a much more relational and small group centered youth formation. We're replacing that over a 3-year period, kind of phasing things in. Focus first on 9th through 12th grade, then 6th through 8th grade, then finally 1st through 5th grade. We have some pilot parishes right now who are experimenting with the new phased-in approach. They're learning as they go. They're developing resources. They are about a year ahead of the rest of the parishes, so that when the rest of our parishes begin to implement new youth formation, we've already had some parishes who are working out the kinks, you might say, and who are providing resources for the remaining parishes. As we look ahead going forward, the three primary areas of focus that we have all really been behind the scenes. Right now, there's a book that we are encouraging our parishes to read that if we can't encourage you enough to read it. It's called Divine Renovation. It's going to say a lot of things that are going to help us put things into context. Many of our parishes are begin to read that. Parish staffs are going to begin to read that, and we can encourage you enough to read that if you want to understand where we have been over the last couple months. Where are we going? What's the focus for us in strategic planning going forward? Well, there's three primary areas of focus from Easter to Labor Day. The first is when we want to continue to work with our pastors and our parishes so that they really own the plan. Number two, we want to help our priest pastors take the next step. And then we're just going to be focused on training. So over the next several months in the Office of Parish Support and in strategic planning, that's where we're focused on. With the pastors and owning their plan, it's our focus during May from now to Pentecost to really help press this into action. So you're going to see us out a lot because we're going to be on location with those parishes. So if you don't see a lot of us in the Office of Parish Support upstairs, that's just because we're out in parishes helping those pastors really own the plan that was submitted, help them understand the action plans so that they are ready for Pentecost. And so you can keep that in your prayer. Number two, we want to certainly help our priests take the next step. We're going to continue the lunch and learns, but we're also going to be experimenting with something as we go forward where we're helping our priests in smaller groups. A 20 group, just very quickly, is something that comes from the corporate world, where in the GM world, you would put 20 GM dealers together from across the country, and they would get together on a regular basis, and they would talk out what's happening in their businesses, and they would support each other. And imagine if we had a concept like that for priests and pastors in small groups, let's say maybe 5 to 7 priests at a time, where they were getting together on a regular basis, really thinking through where they are as a pastor, what they need to succeed, how they're doing with their plan, with evangelization, where they're supporting each other. So that 20 group model that works in corporate America, we're going to begin to start experimenting with so that we continue to help our pastors grow in their identity as a leader in their parishes in small groups, probably 5 to 7 at a time. And then finally, we're going to be training. We're going to continue to focus on leadership for adult formation, training small group leaders, the teams that are going to be working with that. We're also going to be focused on youth formation, specifically helping our parishes recruit more adults and then train those adults who are going to be working with our teenagers. We are going to be focused on these three things over the next several months, helping our pastors own the plan, helping our priests take that next step, and training. It has been a gift to be with you at Town Hall today. I hope you enjoy the crawfish. It's been a joy to be with you, even as through the gift of technology. Pray for us at the wedding. Looking forward to being back in the action and with you as we move forward now to Pentecost. God bless.